audience tuning in from different time zones. Today's panel with two thought leaders in global technology. And so now at the very top of the global technological supply chain, there sits a global leader in technology for the first time from the emerging world. And Huawei has been so much in this global debate, particularly since last Friday. So why don't I start with you, Glenn? Give us some thoughts.
Huawei has always stressed the importance of the fact that together we can share a fully connected world. We should have a sense of urgency to find a way that we can bring forward the best technologies without sacrificing quality or sacrificing security. 5G is fundamental to that. And in the world today, nobody has invested more in research and development in 5G. No one holds more patents in the 5G space. And so we have got to agree upon some global standards that will allow everyone to join in the effort to bring forward the best technologies using the best minds to benefit all of us.
The best technologies for the best minds for the benefit of all of us. Andy, what do you have to add?
I mean, let's not forget that Huawei tried for a very long time to enter the U.S. market and was blocked also numerous times. And, this is in direct contravention to what the U.S. professes to believe in: free markets, let the best companies win. Because the big idea here, as I'm sure we all know, is that the U.S. feels threatened by Huawei because it sees Huawei as posing a threat to its technological dominance. And this is not the first time in modern history that it's happened. If we go back and look at Japan, especially look at the case of Toshiba and Japan's rise with semiconductors. In that instance, the U.S. was able to, quote unquote, strangle, to use the words of Senator Ben Sasse from Nebraska, right? The U.S. thought it was waving a big stick of dynamite, but in reality, it was just a limp, wet firecracker. And what I meant by that was, at the time, the U.S. was focusing on strong arming its allies like the UK, like Australia, as well as other countries, Germany, Italy, etc., to not use Huawei and posing various threats. But my claim at the time, or my belief, was that that wasn't going to be successful, and in fact was going to backfire. It has hurt itself in terms of companies, especially the suppliers to Huawei. The people that are being hurt even more as we go forward are the 3 billion people around the world that rely on Huawei products and services.
So, Andy, I like your quote, geopolitics, we can say that it's certainly interested in Huawei. And so talking about the latest wave of the saga.
And I think rotating chairman Guoping said this very well, that I think the sees as its birthright technological and won't tolerate sharing it with anyone else. And, I think, so that hasn't changed. What of course has changed, I think in a quite dramatic way, is that the locus of the attack by the U.S. on Huawei has now moved upstream.
I think part of this policy by the U.S. is backfiring. Rotating Chair Guoping at the Analyst Summit made the observation that because of America's policies, there is a lack of trust now in the American supply chain. And that's going to have a long-term negative effect, especially given the world we live in today. We can't afford not to collaborate, not to bring forward the best technologies, because literally our lives depend upon it. Technology should be, as Chair Guoping has said, like electricity. It should bring light to all of us, and we shouldn't slow it down because of politics. We should instead foster it for the benefit of humanity.
I think someone raised this point that there are 450,000 American jobs that directly depend on sales to Huawei. So about 300 companies in the U.S. are Huawei suppliers. So, of course, Glenn mentioned that this is creating a loss of confidence, not just in Huawei, not just in Chinese companies, but other companies around the world, too, that want to weaponize the supply chain like this, it really undermines business confidence. Millions and millions of Americans depend on these companies to provide retirement security for them. So what's going to happen if these companies are not able to prosper?
Mm-hmm. So, Andy, also in Huawei's press statement, which you alluded to, it also talked about the rule on Friday that might affect the expansion, maintenance, and the continuous operations of networks in about 170 countries and regions globally.
I'm sure there are concerns, but I think one thing that Huawei has been very clear at emphasizing is working closely with their customers and partners to mitigate any disruption. And I think that, one thing that Huawei is known for, besides its technological innovation, is, just the work ethic and the commitment to customer service. The reason they're winning a lot of these contracts is not just because they're cheaper, but the technology is better and the delivery is better as well. And especially for telcos, time is money. So I think that Huawei has built up a reservoir of goodwill and trust, and that this is one of the issues that hopefully wisdom and good judgment will prevail, and the recognition that what's the best for the American people, and I think for business, is to integrate and make this a better world through technology.
China finished a 2-year national research project called the China Standards 2035 in March of this year. And it's a 2-year in the coming. And so China's standardization administration describes it very neatly. It says first-class companies do standards, second-tier companies do technology, and third-tier companies do products. And so China Standards 2035 is really not about technology. This is about building the infrastructure on which all future technology flows. How is China's future global standards, say by 2035, going to be fundamentally different from the ones defined in the past 30 years, primarily by the US?
Ideally, technical standards are just that. They are technical. And they're based on science. They're based on good public policy, to the degree that we can predict these things looking forward.
I think that China, like Huawei, is emphasizing a infrastructure that we can rely upon, that we can have standards, as you nicely point out, standards rather than simply technology that we can all agree to. I'm an American who's now living in Sicily. I have been struggling with reliable internet since I've gotten here. And there's no part of the world that should have that happen, because when you can't rely upon your technology, you become disenfranchised.
So in this global 5G standards, according to Strategy Analytics, it's a strategic research firm, Huawei provides more contributions to end-to-end 5G standard than any other company in the world.
This is it. The United States must sit down and be a part of the conversation and a part of crafting what should be global standards, because we can't have a fragmentation of technology. We certainly should not have a fragmentation of 5G when, again, the sharing of information becomes so important for all of us.
So the more people that are involved, the more diverse perspectives, I think the less likely it is that anyone will get blindsided in defining standard.